Welcome to Kelly's Quest, the Transnational Journey, 50 states and 50 stories. North Carolina is a diverse state, running from the Appalachian Mountains all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, from rural towns like Boone to major economic powerhouses like Charlotte. Home of the famous Wright brothers flight, it has long been a source of innovation. It's also home to some of the fiercest attacks on trans rights in the nation, including 3 anti-trans bills introduced this year alone. It was in this climate that we arrived in Charlotte. Almost immediately, we were greeted with disturbing news. Earlier that same week, there had been a murder of a black trans woman just miles away, the second murder to happen in just 2 weeks. To find out how the trans community in North Carolina is coping and fighting back, we met with Rell Lowery, Charlotte Black Pride's transgender community advocate at RC Bradford Disc Golf Course. Hi, Rell.
Hello,
It is
how are
so
you?
nice to finally meet
Nice
you.
to finally meet you.
Thank you so much for coming out on the disc golf course with me today and learning this wonderful sport.
Kind of reminds you of Frisbee.
It's a lot like Frisbee.
Okay.
So the way that you hold it, you know how like with the Frisbee you hold it like this with your finger on the end? This one you hold it underneath like this or like this.
Okay.
I like to start off close.
Okay.
Because I like to build my confidence. And you kind of turn in like this and you go like that.
Okay.
I don't know how old you are, but I've been playing this game since 1991.
I am 38 and this will be my first time in 2021.
There we go.
There we go. 4
So-
times the charm. And it's good to be back outside after this last year where we've all
this
been
pandemic
inside.
is-
So this in itself feels great.
So, Rell, thank you so much for coming. And, you know, we just came down here, and there's a lot of tragedy that's happened here in Charlotte recently.
We've had 2 killings this month alone of transgender women, and it sent us backwards. You can't predict anything like that to happen, especially, you know, Easter Sunday. That's the what you wake up to in the morning, and it kind of caught all of us off guard because it was just not, we had just finished wrapping up all of our interviews for Trans Day of Visibility on the 31st of March, and then not even a week later, we've got someone murdered without any answers, and then 2 weeks later, we have another transgender woman that's murdered. So our community is definitely feeling a lot of emotions right now, not really feeling the safest. Things that the normal person would take for granted, like being able to go out your front door and knowing you're going to make it home, those are things that our transgender women have to wrestle with before you walk out your door. Is this the day that I don't make it back?
When these 2 murders happened, I'm assuming that obviously the police were involved. Has anybody come to you all and said, hey, this is big, we need your help? Or are they coming to you trying to dictate the type of help that our community needs?
As sad as it seems, our transgender community at this point just doesn't have the trust that we should have in the police department. I'm fortunate I haven't had any bad situations with them, but I know a lot of people that have, specifically our transgender women of color. They do not feel safe with the police department. If anything, I think that may be even more of a thing that's difficult for them because they don't know how they're going to be treated if they have to call 911. And that's not something that any of us should feel. You should feel if your life is in danger or you feel like you need help, that's who you should be able to call and help is coming. We shouldn't feel like if I call them, this situation could be much worse. So maybe it's better for me to handle it myself. Or a lot of times they don't tell anyone when things like this happen, and that's no way to live. Because as of right now, that relationship has been so badly demolished that trust is just not there anymore.
And trust and respect are, like, I'm a middle school science teacher, and I know for a fact that just because I'm a teacher doesn't mean I automatically deserve trust and respect from my students.
Yep.
I have to go build relationships with my students. And it sounds like to me what's happening is respect and trust are almost being demanded and assumed are just going to automatically happen because of the authority that comes with the badge. And that's not how it works in the real world. You've got to come to me and talk to me, hear my story, share your story too.
And I think, you know, just that simple conversation, just that simple warming up is what it's going to take. But that, you know, it can't always come from our community. It has to come from them to our community. So that we, you know, like you said, they can feel safe, and so that their voices can be heard. And I think that's going to be one of the most key points to build that trust, to start the foundation over again. Because right now, like I said, it's just not there, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Maybe if they were to be around a group of transgender individuals and say, hey, what are some things that we can do? What are some things that needs to be worked on in our city? Instead of assuming or going leading with authority, lead with humility. You lead with humanity, lead with compassion, because they've been hurt. They have a lot of emotions. They have friends that have been killed, not just this month. Like I told a lot of people yesterday, this is something that is not new for our community. It's sad that it took for 2 individuals to be murdered for it to get this much attention from our news and from our media. But I think this relationship could have been established a long time ago before it got to this point.
And in your organization, Charlotte Black Pride, can you kind of tell me what your role is with them?
So basically, my role is the transgender community liaison. My job is to basically bridge the gap or bring the voice of our trans community to Charlotte Black Pride and the events that we have here in Charlotte. There hasn't been anyone that's transgender on the board before, so a lot of times we're not left out. But my job is to make sure that it is all inclusive and that you do see a face of someone trans, so that makes you feel more welcome. There's always the LGB that we see out in person. And a lot of times you may see someone that's transgender, but you don't know. So the ones that are afraid to come out, if you don't see someone that looks like you, it may make you not feel comfortable to come out. And that's why I took the position, so that, we can be seen, we can be heard. If you have never seen a transgender person before, you have now. So you can feel safe. I don't have all of the answers, but you're welcome. And together, if we all come together, we can get the answers and get the support that our community needs.
And those parents and those children are going to see you, and they're going to think, okay, I can make it here. I feel like whenever our community makes ground, there's people that are going to always push back against us. Do you think that all of these stupid laws that are or bills that are being submitted in legislatures of North Carolina are direct pushback from our advances?
It's a direct shot, if I can say that, direct shot at the work that's being done in our community, not just here in Charlotte, but all over. I think there are a lot of people that don't like the change that's coming. They don't like the representation that's being put out there. They don't like seeing someone trans on TV in a positive light. And I think that gets under their skin. I can't imagine why. But they don't like the work that's being done and the change that's taking place, that's needed in our country. If we keep things the same forever, what type of world is that to live in? Change it's necessary and it's needed right now. And these laws, I think, it's just one extra step that they are taking to hope that they shut our fight down, but it's going to do the opposite.
It always does the opposite.
It's going to push our fight a lot more, because we are Americans here. We should feel like we can be safe. We should feel like our voices are heard, and we live regular lives. I can't tell you how many times I've had to say that in an interview. I don't know why people automatically assume the word transgender is something that you see in the movies. We're real people. We're real people.
I'm here, yes.
I'm here. We live regular lives. We live regular lives just like you guys, and I think the more that they see us, the more that we're out, and the more that they realize, hey, it's not as different as I thought. That type of thing is going to be what's needed to change the perception of what transgender is. And
let's specifically focus on the bills for a second. There's 3 bills that have been entered, is that correct?
Yep. So basically, I don't want to say the one that gets under my skin the most, but the one that does is the one that's basically pushing for parents of transgender youth that are under the age of 21. They don't want you to support your child, in a nutshell. That means any type of hormone treatment, medications, therapy, anything like that that's going to help your child come out and be who they are. It's basically almost as if you're penalizing the parent for being a parent. A parent's job is to be supportive of their child no matter what it is, as long as it's something positive. But these laws are basically coming to try to stop a parent from being able to do that. And anytime you tell a child you can't do something, unless it's harmful, I feel like that's automatically, you're putting a stop to that child's future.
Yep.
Because we're always taught to push our children, let them be who they are, let them express themselves. But these laws are doing the exact opposite.
I mean, the bills themselves, and the one that gets me also is the one that the mandated reporting. What the bill in North Carolina is trying to say is that as a teacher, if I see a child come in that has some gender expansiveness, gender creativity, where their gender expression has changed in some way, in theory, if this bill becomes a law, I'm mandated to go tell the parents so that the parents can do something about it. And what I would want to do is tell the parents, and the parents say, oh, thank goodness you're telling me, come on kid, let's go get therapy, and I love you, and let me take care of you. But that's not the intention of this bill. The bill is to penalize that parent for giving birth to a transgender or gender expansive youth.
And it's almost being treated as if it's child abuse if you don't. And to even put the two in the same ballpark, child abuse, if you're physically or mentally or emotionally harming your child, versus you supporting your child because they're transgender, these bills are basically putting them in the same category. And anyone that has children, I can't imagine how you would think that one goes with the other.
You know, I share this with people. My family disowned me because I'm transgender. And I, to this day, recover from that. Like, that is an ongoing trauma that will stick with me for my entire life. And that's one of the reasons all of my emphasis is on, is this going to help trans youth? Because I would have desperately have loved to have had that mirror when I was a child. Was yours like a solo journey, or did you have huge support?
I actually, I had huge support. It was hard for me because my family is so close. We all live here in Charlotte. And my biggest thing is even then, with all the horror stories that I've heard from different people in the LGBT community about coming out as trans and like you said, you know, your family disowning you and things like that. But I am fortunate, I'm blessed that I don't have that story. My family has been amazing, all the way down to my grandparents. My grandparents are both in their 90s. I love them to death. Even though they don't understand, they've accepted it.
That is huge, and that's what I tell people. You don't have to understand. I don't understand a lot of things in life, but I accept that I accept people for who they tell me they are.
Yep. And that's the biggest thing. A lot of people don't realize, even though you may not understand, we don't expect the whole world to understand what it means to be trans or what we go through. The only thing we ask for is to respect it. And you can respect something without understanding it, and you can still be as supportive just by respecting it and learning.
Yep.
Learning things that you don't know. I tell people all the time, constantly, we're on our phones all day. If you were to challenge yourself to take 10 minutes a day to research something that you don't know about being transgender, this world will be a much better place.
I mean, I do that.
Even us, right?
We
There's
have
stuff
to,
that we learn every
learn
day.
about our community because nobody taught us growing up about our
Exactly.
community. So we're becoming the teachers that we're the students learning to become the teachers to go teach the next generation of students to become the next generation of teachers.
This journey is not for the weak at heart.
No, it is
Every
not.
day is going to be something different, and the only thing you can do is kind of be prepared for the unexpected. And a lot of times I'll unplug. I spend time with my family. I go to church, and just taking that time away from social media, away from the news, even if it's just for a day, it definitely helps.
It does. You mentioned church.
Yes.
Can you share what it's like to be spiritually enriched in a church as opposed to being rejected by a church?
I started out, my family's big in the church. My grandparents took us to church every Sunday. My parents took us to church every Sunday. I went to Bible study and choir rehearsal with my grandmother every Thursday night. But even then, my home church, I felt uncomfortable. And I went for a while, but I found a church that I fell in love with, New Life Fellowship. My pastor is Pastor John P. Key. He made it easy for me.
Wow.
And we have conversations. He wants to bring in all the members to the church that everyone else has turned away. When you look around, you see all races, all genders, all ethnicities. I have not had not one negative anything from that church. And they've all accepted me for who I am prior to my transition and now. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I've learned so much, and that is what helped me. Just being able to know that it's accepted, even if they don't understand. They never looked at me any differently. I was not expected to be anybody but me, and that made me feel great.
And that means that you have the energy that you would have had to have used to defend yourself in a church. That energy now gets to go help your
Someone else.
community
Yep.
here in Charlotte. I think though that just scares people. Like
It
you
does.
were saying, there are just some people that are scared of transgender people because
Yep.
they don't understand it. And I think some of those bills directed at you are an attempt to prevent us
Yep.
from growing up into adults.
Yep.
And they didn't realize my family didn't let me do anything as a child. They told me I was going to go to hell, that I was wrong,
Man.
and all of this stuff as I was growing up. But still, here I am.
Where you are.
That
Yep.
oppression did not work.
It does the opposite.
It did
does
the opposite for me.
It does the opposite.
So what I want to do now is I kind of want to go play some disc golf real quick, and we'll just go play a couple of holes. When you're throwing uphill, you've got to let your whole body come through. There you go. You just like threw it 20 feet further uphill than you did your first throw. At this learning curve, you'll be throwing it 5,000 feet, I think, by the end of the round.
Great teacher.
We flew down here last night, and the one thing that I noticed immediately, there's no snow on the ground.
If you see
We
snow, it's
left.
very rare here in
We
Charlotte.
left yesterday. There was 2 to 3 inches of snow on the ground at my house.
Oh man.
If I make this one, that'll be pretty crazy because this is not something I normally do. Close. Got it. That's one of the worst sounds. Got it. There you go. Nice. We were talking about spirituality. We were talking about how your church has accepted you and how you have found a home, a spiritual home. I know that Transnational Charlotte got its start in the basement of a church. With all of this hatred, all of this anti-transphobic, anti-transgender bills going on, are the religious community, the churches coming together to support us and to fight alongside of us?
There are quite a few that do support 100%. I'm sure there are quite a few that don't, unfortunately, but from my experience, there are quite a few that do, and we're thankful for their support. They make sure that, you know, our transgender community has, you know, pantries and closets and things like that, and just the whole judgmental aspect is completely removed from it. That's not even a topic of discussion. They're more so wanting to help the person.
How do you think that came about in Charlotte?
Diversity. Our city, I've been here my entire life. Our city has grown so much. We've got some of everyone here, and I think a lot of the churches are realizing that's what they're for. You know, your doors are supposed to be open for the people, not just certain people, whether you understand or you accept. It should be open for everyone. So I think a lot of churches are moving in that direction, especially after this pandemic. They're realizing there are a lot of people that need help.
One of the things that I know down south, to keep myself safe, I had to go stealth. I wouldn't tell people I was transgender, and that was tricky because I was always a fear of being found out. And I want to talk about being stealth with you, because I think you had talked about in your story that maybe you had gone stealth for a while also.
I did for, I'll say about 3 years. My employer that I was at that time, they did accept me, but there were a lot of coworkers that kind of knew and kind of didn't, because I hadn't had my name changed yet.
Okay.
So that was always that was always something that was tricky, because you see me, and then when, you know, it's time to introduce yourself, because a lot of, you know, I was at a call center, when you have to introduce yourself, and then the name on your license doesn't quite match the person that they see. So that was always a tricky situation, and having to kind of explain, you know, this is my name on my license, I'm in the process of changing it. I just got kind of burnt out of having that conversation, because you never know how it's going to go.
Right,
Of course, your
exactly.
employer should accept you, but that doesn't always mean that they will. So as far as like my supervisors and things like that, was never a problem, but there were always, you know, those certain coworkers that the conversation changed once they
Right.
kind of knew, because they just simply hadn't met anybody that was trans, or they didn't know what to expect. Or what was funny for me is a lot of females that were, you know, fine and friendly and things like that. Once they found out, it's kind of like I don't quite know what to do. I'm still the same person.
That's the
It's just-
thing. We're
I'm
still the same
person.
people.
I'm still the same person. Just because I'm trans doesn't automatically mean that I'm desperate for love. I have a fiance. I'm fine. I'm still going to open the door for you because that's just, I'm a Southern gentleman. But being trans isn't something that you have to be afraid of. It's not contagious. I think that's what I would tell a lot of them. It's not contagious. It's not going to rub off on you. You're not going to have nightmares at the end of the day. We're people just like anyone else. And if I didn't tell you, you honestly wouldn't know. So if I told you, just know that I trusted you
Exactly.
with that information because I'm not ashamed of it. And then after a while, I finally, you know, especially with everything that's going on now, about 2 years before I joined the Charlotte Black Pride Board, I just felt like now was the time. But as far as going to, you know, organization events and things like that, I didn't see anyone that looked like me. I would always see trans women, but I never saw trans men. And so for me, it was like, I know if I would feel better being able to see someone that looks like me, I'm sure there are a lot of people that would as well. So a lot of, you know, guys like me, they would prefer to live stealth because depending on what work environment you're in, you never know what way it's going to go.
Yep.
It may be accepted, the conversation could go wrong, you know, that could lead to all kinds of harassment at your job. Is it something that you want a chance? But I felt like now was the time, and I haven't had any bad stories. I haven't had any bad situations.
Good.
So
That's what
I
we
was
want.
willing
We
to-
want
yeah.
no trans
Yeah.
person to ever have a bad story or
I was
bad
willing to
situation. So I'm very
put it out
thankful
there.
for that.
Absolutely.
You can use the strategy I use. I never hit what I aim for, so you can aim at. There you go, right in the center.
Oh yeah, this is my first time playing. It definitely won't be my last. I got a good teacher. I had one shot that I made. We're gonna find that footage. Somebody had to record it.
You did it. Oh my gosh.
That was too close for
Let me
comfort.
try my.
Oh. We're gonna say both of those went in. The wind blew it. The wind blew it.
So, Rell, earlier you were talking about family. You were talking about what it means to have that support.
I would basically say family can either make or break your journey, but we all have that inner strength when we decide to actually come out and become our authentic self. I think there's an extra jolt of energy or strength that comes in that kind of prepares you for what you may have to deal with when you come out to your family. It's never comfortable, but it is something that is necessary. For me, I'm fortunate. Like I said, my grandparents have been amazing. They're a lot older, so there are a lot of things that they don't understand, and I'm accepting that, you know, because of the generational gap there. There are just some things that in their time they didn't know of, they hadn't heard of. It's something that they didn't experience. They didn't know anyone that was trans. So I'm definitely understanding of that, and they try to remember my name now. They try to remember my pronouns now. Even year before last, my grandmother gets me a birthday card every year, and she got me one that said to my granddaughter, but before I opened it, she grabbed my hand and she said, before you open it, I don't want you to get mad at me. And I said, I would never get mad at you. And when I opened it, I realized it, and she said, don't take anything from it. She said, you know, I love you. And that, something that small, let me know that she was saying she wasn't prepared to get me a card that said her grandson, but it was just that small step that let me know that she accepts it and she's moving forward with it. So now after that, and then with my parents accepting, it's like I'm ready to take on the world, because if they can accept it and my grandparents can accept it at their age and not being knowledgeable of what trans is, I don't have a fear of what the outside world may feel about me, because I have such a strong support system. And I know, you know, there are going to be good days, there are going to be bad days, there are going to be some people that might not like what you're doing, they might not appreciate the message that you're trying to give across, but it motivates you.
Yep.
Just that much more. So if anybody takes anything from this interview, especially parents that watch it, that support means so much to your child. Even if you don't understand, just going about doing the research, going on Google and watching programs that might educate you, taking those little steps, you'll be surprised how much further it will allow you to understand your child and how much more that bond will grow.
Yep.
Because even for my parents, there were some patchy periods where they didn't understand, what his behavior is changing or her behavior is changing at this point. So when I actually did sit down and had the conversation, it took me about 6 weeks of every week saying, this Sunday is going to be the day that I'm going to tell them. And that Sunday would come and I'm like, I'm not ready. I can't do this today. We'll do it next Sunday. And then finally I just decided it's time. And I'll never forget my mom's words were, make sure that you're doing it the right way. Make sure that you have a doctor that cares about you, because at the end of the day, my child is supposed to bury me. I'm not supposed to bury my child.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that meant a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
It
And two things that struck me, what you were just saying. With your grandmother saying to you, look, please don't be upset with me. You could have handled that 1,000 different ways when you opened that letter and you chose grace.
Absolutely.
That's so hard for our community to do, because we have been battered in so much. And grace isn't one of those things we want to feel sometimes. Sometimes we want to feel righteous anger.
Yep.
And for you to understand that grace is necessary right now is why your family is still there with you.
Because like I said, all of my family is in Charlotte. All of my parents' friends, they knew before. They've all adjusted. They all respect the pronouns. They all respect the names. I do have some family that is still adjusting. And we struggle with that. We have to have those uncomfortable conversations when you still address me by my previous name or you still say she. And that anger, like you said, after so many years, this is my seven-year transition, and it can automatically give you that negative, and you want to respond negative, and you're angry, like, exactly how long is it going to take for you to adjust? 7 years ago, physically what you saw, I can understand, but 7 years from then, address me for what you see, not for what you knew. Even out of respect for me, a lot of people, they'll know that, my story, my pronouns, they'll accept the new name, but I think they're more so fearful of my mom. And as crazy as that sounds, it's because she has a firm, no-nonsense, you're going to accept my child for who he is, or there's going to be trouble. And she's sweet to everyone. I don't want anyone to think she's mean, because she's not. Give you the shirt off her back 24 hours a day. But it's just that simple. Meeting her when they ask how I'm doing and they may give my previous name. No. My son and my daughter, which would be my younger sister. And it's one of those looks like you probably don't want to ask anything else, just accept it the way that she gave it. So I'm appreciative of that. And it's that makes me have that grace. Like, I know I have to remain calm, because my support team is probably going to catch you before I do. So there are a lot of people that don't have that support. So if I can help in any way, and to share that, all of my friends, they call my mom. She welcomes everybody, and you need that. It makes you feel like there's nothing that you can't take on. One small situation is not going to make me be that angry, aggressive person, because I know for every one person that doesn't support you, there are 1,000 people that do. And that's what our community needs to realize. Those that don't have have the family support, you may not have those 4 or 5 in your household that support you, but you've got all of these great organizations here in Charlotte. You've got all these great people that you can meet. Social media, we're all available. You have that support. Yep. It may not be at home, but just know that you're not alone.
Talking with Rell was inspiring, and his work is making a powerful impact in the community. To learn more, visit charlotteblackpride.org.
Yes, we are.
And let's go get some barbecue. Yes!
It's time. Let's go eat.
I want to thank everyone who made a donation. Your generosity is what makes the Transnational journey possible. To help grow the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.